Good afternoon. Welcome to Poetry and Prose. This program is we have this program remembering Anson Gonzalez because World Poetry Day is in 2 days' time. So welcome, and I want to introduce the chair for today, Krishna Samaroo. Take it away, Krish.
Hi, good afternoon. On Sunday, 6th September 2015, the literary world was plunged into mourning with the passing of Anson Gonzalez, a major Caribbean literary icon. A few Sundays ago, spurred on by nostalgic recollections of this man by members whose lives he touched, we agreed to devote a session entirely to the memory of this extraordinary man of letters. We timed the tribute to be as close as possible to World Poetry Day, observed on 21st March. Our forum meets on this Zoom platform fortnightly on Sundays, so this is the closest date we have to the 21st. The significance of the timing then should not be lost on anyone who knew Anson Gonzalez, for it was Anson who established the annual observance of World Poetry Day here. We used to have it on October the 15th, and in some 8 other Caribbean countries. We are pleased to have on our program, hopefully she will join us in a while, a family member of Anson, his beloved daughter, Miguela. Dr. Maria Gonzalez was also supposed to be here, but she has sent her apologies. We welcome some of his dearest friends. It's good to see Miss Springer here. And some dearest friends who, when approached to appear on today's platform, gave it not a second thought. Additionally, we have our regular readers. So we have quite a packed program. It reminds me of when Anson used to celebrate Poetry Day, and we had so many people on it. First off is a tribute by another distinguished son of the soil, Ken Jaikaransing. I knew the name Ken was tied to Longman Publishing Company with office in Boundary Road, San Juan. I now know him as a Facebook friend who posts reflections on a range of topics. Ken is the author of 2 collections of short stories, The Carnival is Over and The Mark of Cain. I am honored to set the tone for this afternoon's remembrance of Anson Gonzalez by reading Ken's tribute. This is Ken Jaikaransing. Remembering Anson. I didn't know Anson Gonzalez before 1969. In fact, he, moving into the 2nd year of a UE degree after 2 years of evening classes, and I, doing the same after a first year spent at the Archon lecture rooms north of the campus, would meet when that initial aggregation of gray concrete and teak buildings, known then as the JFK Quadrangle, first welcomed students into its new library and lecture rooms. We were very different people. He was a mature man with marriage and work experience already on his resume, while I was a fledgling teenager, barely out of St. Mary's College, green and thirsting for the university experience. And what an experience that would be for us both. Those were the heady days of student activism at UE that would lead to locking Canada's Governor General out of the campus, marching on the streets of Port-au-Spain to protest the treatment of Walter Rodney, Bill Revere, and others, and ultimately to the Black Power street protests of 1970. And Anson, in his own inimitable way, would be at the quiet center of these events, ensconced in the publications room, just north of the New Students' Union dining room, where so many heady meetings and debates would energize the atmosphere, and from which he would meticulously churn out embryo. a weekly student newspaper of which he was editor, publisher, and frequent contributor. Publishers' ink flowed in Anson's veins. Nice metaphor there, Ken. Publishers' ink flowed in Anson's veins even then, and onto his hands as well, since embryo was produced in laborious fashion using a Gestetner duplicating machine on which the typed master sheet would be stretched over a cylindrical drum and repeatedly inked as it printed replicas on legal-sized sheets. The finished version, printed both sides, would be stapled together, then distributed free of charge around the campus. Anson also found time to edit and produce two collections of creative work called Themes 1 and 2, in both of which he found space to involve me, that is Ken. He cast me as well as Ramsing, the precocious farmer who helps to precipitate the ultimate conflict in Anson's one-act play, The Rice Mill. This production enjoyed an enthusiastic reception from audiences, both at the JFK Lecter Theatre, where it was first performed, then at Cayville, Barbados, when the various campuses met together in a week of sport and artistic activity. His seemingly endless presence in the publications room did not seem that it might allow him much time to attend either lectures or tutorials, but he must clearly have fulfilled all academic challenges on the road to his degree. I see Miguela is here. Welcome, Miguela. That's Anson's daughter. He did show up often for Gordon Rollier's lectures on West Indian literature. Indeed, the love of literature is what lay behind his decision after UE to devote his time, energy, and financial resources to the publication of the New Voices for many years, also meticulously produced out of his home on Sapphire Drive, Diego Martin. The New Voices was an important vehicle for many aspiring writers and poets. He collaborated with his great friend, Victor Kettle, to produce Score, a joint anthology of their poetic pieces, and would produce collections of his own poetic work, including one, Collected Poems, with a selection drawn from over his creative years. Anson and I, that is Ken, would meet on occasion after our UE days, usually at some literary event. He would be somewhat bemused when I took up a position with a UK publisher. Later in life, he turned to running and lost considerable weight in the process, as I mentioned to him on more than one occasion. It was as well, he pointed out, the result of changes in his diet. I suspected also that he had embarked on some spiritual journey in his life, a suspicion confirmed when I would read his collection, Moksha. We would lose touch in the final years of his life, and I was saddened when I heard of his passing. I welcome this opportunity to pay homage to a remarkable friend and inspiration. That was Ken Anson, talking about the UE days, nostalgic days. To me, it's a fitting beginning. You notice how emotional you got there towards the end, as Cynthia did when she told me she read it. So now we'll get into the reading of Anson's works. I want to welcome again Miguela. Thank you for being here. We got to know that your sister wasn't able to attend, and but you are representing both of you, the family. Thank
I'm
you
on
so
double
much.
duty.
So Willard is Willard. Did Willard reach?
So Willard is not here.
So Randy, will you read the piece that Willard was supposed to read? Moksh?
Well, let's wait till Willard come in and move along.
Oh, so let's move on to Heather then, right? Okay. So Heather is a Canadian-based author whose heart has never left these shores, correct, Heather?
That's right.
Right. She writes of Trinidad and contemporary issues. She's a regular to our forum and in fact was featured in February 2022. She has written a number of books, View from My Armchair, lovely title, Cold Fire, A Caribbean Odyssey, to name just some. She comes from the highly distinguished Laltu family, about whom she wrote in The Laltus of Trinidad. Heather will read So Much Love. Over to you, Heather.
Thank you. So much love. Love came to me in a dream and said, "The master sent me to be yours. Do what you will." I took love for a toy and put him in a playpen with my dolls. What wonderful games we played, and I was not surfeited. But love became bored and pined away. One day I went to the playpen and love had gone. My dolls started to pine for love, and one by one they disappeared. All I was left with was an empty playpen. I heard the flute sound playing as I chanted the Who. The place became an ethereal amphitheater. The cloudless sky became miraculously decorated with diamonds. And the masters came filling the amphitheater seats. They sat and smiled as love filled my heart. Then they filled my heart, and all things filled my heart. And I was the amphitheater, and gathered masters, and the cloudless sky and the diamond stars. And I was love, and they were love, and we were love. And the master intoned the ancient new words: "Go, my son, be the love, share the love. Show it in service, in coin and in deed. It is only in giving that you will receive." So much love surrounds me. I seem to be breathing love. This bliss fills me with an intoxication. It is in my nostrils as I inhale, and my lungs, swollen as hot air balloons, lift my spirit as I rise in response. Into my arteries rushes love in tumultuous torrents, feeding exhilarating oxygen into my muscles and tissues. The red becomes a noble red of courage. As gushing through my capillaries, my light is enhanced, and the glow dulled before now shines like the fires of a whirling dervish or a mad mullah. This poor heart, already swollen, is gorged with love that circulates throughout this enlivened organism. It rushes to the brain, and like the effect of pure air, oxygen, a light-headedness overtakes. It sends a message to eyes and ears, to mouth and nostrils, to skin and fingers. O sensari heightened, non-sensually. O vibrations, O trembling, O sensation. Around me is the defined manifestation in all souls struggling for sacred realization. This feeling, so personal and yet so impersonal, of its own volition, radiates to one and all and returns enhanced, value added, to wreak its beautiful havoc in me once more. Go forth, love. I can do little with you. I can do little for you. Your force has power beyond my understanding. You have focused in one habitation with its inhabitants and fed them mutual psychic and spiritual sustenance that converted bricks and mortar and glass and metal and earth and grass and raw energy into a hearth where burn strong fires of comfort and succor. You have spared, you have spread me off to lead and nurture others, to lend a helping hand, a supporting shoulder in times of need and emptiness, and to provide as a channel the touch of the Master's hand on hearts that hungered for a time. You brought me guidance, protection, and the will to be tolerant and to respect the space of others, to appreciate whatever is given to me, and to repay in kind and with interest those who have served me. O love, my infantile heart grapples with your immensity, with the gift that keeps giving and growing.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Yes.
It says here it's from the Artifacts of Presence, the collected poems.
Yeah. Anson wrote that collected poems, 1964 to 1979, closed the door to phase one of his poetic career on the threshold of the state of clarity / purity to begin phase two of his evolution as a poet. Anson expended his energy on a quest of spiritual fulfillment. He tried TM, Transcendental Meditation, but gave up to try other paths until he discovered Ekanka. He became a devoted ekist and attributed his creative inspiration to the spiritual teachings of Ek. Thus began the second phase with postcards and haiku and moksha, poems of light and song. And in this poem, you have so much of the teachings of Ek coming out in it, through it. Anybody would want to make any comment before we go on? Proceed to Colleen Selvan Rampasad. As I say, it's tight, so should let me move on, right? Okay. Colleen Selvan Rampasad served as a long-standing active member and secretary of the Writers Union of Trinidad and Tobago. She's a reading instructor and remedial English tutor. She's currently at work on manuscripts in prose and poetry. Selvan Rampasad does dramatic performances and creates poetry on the US-based internet site allpoetry.com. Over to you, Colleen Selvan Rampasad.
Thank you and good day to all.
Good day. Go ahead.
Many moons ago, my mentor, Anson Gonzalez, introduced me to haiku at Writers Union. His books occupy front row in my library. Among them, it's Joining Voices, that's National Poetry Day. That's a DVD in 2008, and then Anson Gonzalez, Artifacts of Presence, which was mentioned. And I'm so grateful that because today, contemporary haiku is my favorite form of poetry, all because of Anson. And haiku is an Oriental poetry form, basically written in 3 lines with a phrase and a fragment. The last lines are different, but still tied into the rest of the haiku with a juxtaposition or a connecting thought. Haiku is much like an unfinished poem that you complete with your own thoughts. February was International Haiku Month. I wish to share a few winners from February. So if you have questions on the haiku afterwards, you can always contact me through Motilal. Okay, so I'll just share with you 5 winners from the last International Month, February. 1, Echo of Zephyrs singing through the reeds, tadpoles in a wag. 2, golden daffodils across the chilly hills, a Midas touch. 3, bare hand mud fishing in misty swamp, a rub on my leg. 4, a rosy splash across eventide sky, yearning for you. And the last, no pot of gold at rainbow's end, sweat of thy brow. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Colleen. You don't have any more, Colleen? They are very brief. Haiku is 17 syllables, correct? Yes.
No.
All
No.
right.
That is Japanese haiku.
Yes, I remember Anson using that. I remember Anson doing a exercise with us. He had some of us write. He said, you know, the first haiku is supposed to lead on to the second one and the third one and so on until you get an entire piece. We experimented once with that. I think it was a Poetry Day celebration. Okay, so let's move on to Cynthia Birch.
Okay,
Cynthia,
Willard is here.
sorry?
Willard is here.
Okay, do you want me to go to Willa then?
You decide.
Cynthia? Should
Whatever you wish is fine with me.
should I put in reverse? Let me put in reverse and go back to
Yes,
Willard, right?
Willard, certainly.
Willard, you're ready? Willard? Well, if he's not, let me go ahead with Cynthia, yes?
All right. Thank
Let me
you.
go ahead with Cynthia. Cynthia has had some 27 years as an educator. She is becoming well known as a champion of the way the English language ought to be used publicly, particularly by the media. To this end, she has produced 2 slim handbooks. She calls them booklets or handbooks or booklets, entitled What We Say, What We Write, as a means of pointing ways to avoid pitfalls in the use of English. I have to say, from the moment we agreed to have this remembrance of Anson, Cynthia hit the ground running, as we say. She began to work feverishly to ensure that the program goes off, she hopes, swimmingly. Cynthia.
Thank you so much, Krishna. First, I just wanted to paint a little picture. I have here a preamble to Love of Four Persons by Anson Gonzalez. I was blessed to be invited by Anson to the launch of his prose poem collection, Crossroads of Dream. The year was 2003. The book launch, entitled Anson's Birthday Thanksgiving Poetry Reading, was taking place at the then Crown Plaza Hotel, Port of Spain, to start at 4:30 p.m. I got there, went up the steps to the area in which the launch was being held, was greeted by Anson and Sylvia, purchased my copy, and entered the room. That day, Thursday, 21st August, 2003, was Anson's 67th birthday. I myself had just turned 62 on the 4th of that month. The event started. Professor Gordon Roller spoke, followed by a poem by Dr. Jennifer Rahim, and the program continued. I mention these because we have very recently lost both Gordon Roller and Jennifer Rahim. We remember them with gratitude and affection. While seated there following the proceedings, my eyes wandered through some of the prose poems and fell on page 24, Love for Persons. On the spur of the moment, at the close of the open mic segment, I got up and asked if I might read from the publication. Anson acquiesced, so up to the mic I went and read the piece, Love for Poems. Anson, whom we know as a proficient photographer, snapped me as I read. Now the poem. Prose poem. Love for Persons by Anson Gonzalez. Love for persons, like love for life, is sometimes realized as activated by the strangest incidents. Many times it arises out of misfortune. Out of the depths of despair, soul cries to its creator for salvation. And because of the creator's love for soul, a perennially new bond is strengthened. Soul revels in its newly found unity with its source and glows in the warmth of spirit. At the physical plane, something similar happens. A crisis brings people together, and the soul sparks in the eyes sometimes touch. The call for help and the desire to assist come together and generate love, simulating the events on the soul plane. When this is based on pre-existing mutuality, emotions erupt, and this plane love is born with all its adjuncts of desire, pleasure, and possession, and all of its attendant pains when the situation is not really open to such love. Expression of love on this plane should not be blocked. Channeled, yes, but not blocked. To stem the flow, to dam up the love within one's heart is to make it turn rancid and sour. Once love starts flowing with its healing aspects, its stroking aspects, one must enjoy it in the fullness of spirit. One must view it as an aspect of divinity that takes its course towards the goals of self-realization and God-realization. One must love and learn. One must live and learn. And what one must learn from all this is how to love. This is from Crossroads of Dream, the book that was launched the afternoon that I referred to. Prose Poems, page 24. Here, copyright Anson Gonzalez, 2003, published by People Tree. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Yes, what Jennifer, Dr. Rahim had to say about that collection was that it represented a kind of third phase for in the evolution of Anson, but it wasn't a marked difference from content-wise from the second phase. The difference had to do with his style, where he was using prose poems and other forms to express what he wanted to say. Willard, Willard, are you ready? You
Yes,
have the
I
poem.
am.
You have the poem, right? Moksha.
Is it possible you get someone else before me?
Yeah, okay. No problem, Willard.
problem.
You
Sorry
organize
about
it. That's all right. That's all right. You see, I'm not seeing RT also, and Gersha indicated that she would not be able to be here also. So we have, and Dr. Maria was supposed to come on at number 8. I wonder if I should bring in Miguela at this point or wait. Miguela, what do you think? Should I bring you in here or wait a while?
Well, I am just
have the time?
reveling. I'm
You have the
reveling in the
time?
moment, and I'm free
Right.
flow with everything that's happening.
Okay. So I will hold you. I will hold you back, right? That's a trump card here. Let me go to Randy Black.
Randy Black.
Randy has a long career in engineering, but this did not prevent him from following his first love, literature. He's a founding member of the Playwrights Workshop Trinbago, a poet and short story writer. I had more on Randy, but he has a long piece that he has to read from Simon Lee. So a very lovely piece. Randy?
Chris,
Yes.
Randy just left some relative died and he had to
Oh my
do
God.
something here. So
Really?
let me
Oh,
just
shit.
move along, please.
Well, I can read it, you know.
Yes, please do.
I can read the piece because it is a very informative piece, very lovely by Simon Lee, and I have it.
Please
Okay.
do.
So the swan song of Anson Gonzalez. Let your blackness lead out of this dungeon into the unknowing. At least no fear lurks there. New adventure excites the faithful step. White bones and skulls smiling, beatific, beckon with wistful sighs. I look and long to death by Anson Gonzalez. On September 6, one of the Caribbean's largely unsung, but widely revered man of letters, finally succumbed to a long-term heart condition. Already critically ill, Anson left Trinidad and Tobago back in 2013 to join one of his daughters living in Wales. Besides his own poetry, Anson will be remembered for his work towards sustaining the literary culture of the Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago in
Yeah,
particular.
Randy, I think he just
He's back.
I think it is some relative.
Moti,
I don't think it is far as nephew.
cutting in like a Spanish station there. Moti?
Yes, so you tell me you have to go. No problem.
All right. Mot. In 1973, he founded, edited, and published The New Voices, a biannual journal which ran for 20 years, I think it's 21, and published work by more than 300 Caribbean writers, and which was also responsible for the bibliography of creative writing in Trinidad and Tobago from 1962 onwards, now available online. The New Voices imprint, founded in 1974, published both his own poetry and that of many others, including Jennifer Rahim, Paula Obe, and if I may say so, Krishna Samaroo. The New Voices newsletter he founded in 1981 was another of his initiatives servicing Caribbean writing with its information on writers, competitions, workshops, and grants. More egalitarian than the pioneering Beacon magazine of the 1930s, New Voices, along with the Bajan BIM, the Guyanese Kike Overall, and the Jamaican Focus magazines, provided the vital first publication portal for new writers in the pre-Bocas Litfest period, when regional publishing was either moribund or minimal, or metropolitan publishers only dealt with established names. As co-founder and former president of the Writers Union of Trinidad and Tobago in 1979, Anson established Poetry Day, celebrated on October 15, initially in TNT and now in 8 other Caribbean territories. In addition to teaching creative writing courses across the region, as a facilitator par excellence, he adjudicated many regional poetry and literary competitions, including the prestigious Casa de las Americas Prize. Back in May, TNT Guardian spoke with Anson via Skype. While he joked about being one step from the exit, he made light of his terminal condition and was happy to reminisce about his early days. As the son of a primary school teacher, he spent a peripatetic childhood in Central and South, moving from Mayo to Palo Seco, Erin, Siparia, and Caratal. When he wasn't skating downhill on Coconut Branch and tearing up plants from the age of about 10, reading was a major pastime, and he particularly recalled Dickens and R.L. Stevenson. After graduating in Form 3 from Presentation College, San Fernando, armed with his Cambridge School leaving certificate, he took up his first teaching appointment at Caratal RC Primary School. He was to remain in the primary sector for 8 years, eventually taking a degree at UE, followed by a year at Mosika Teachers College. As a young man, he tried his hand at various cultural and other activities, wryly remembering that because I was red and when presentation, I felt I could play football. His complexion neither improved his footballing skills nor the roles he was offered as an aspiring actor. I wanted to be an actor, but never got good parts. Anytime they wanted a light-skinned person, they got me. One of my first roles was a Chinaman in a shop in Douglas Archibald's Rose Slip. Never one to take himself too seriously, Anson nevertheless wanted to correct or inform the younger generation, often entirely ignorant of its elders' youthful achievements. Remember, we're all bats. Nobody knows we did anything. I tried with playwriting, but it was too hard. I scrambled through one play with Freddie Kissoon, Eric Roach, Walcott. I couldn't compete, boy. He did, however, try his hand as director and went on to act with the Trinidad Theatre Workshop, remembering the late, great Errol Jones as a very harsh critic, boy. He also appeared in several Dimash Gras productions and recalled the intense rivalry between Errol Hill and Walcott in Who's Drums and Colors, commissioned for the inaugural ceremony of the West Indian Federation. He also appeared. He remembered being shocked to discover Walcott had published 3 books. Retrospectively, one can read Anson's individual development as an artist. His volume of collected poems is aptly titled Artifacts of Presence, as synchronous with the collective spirit of creativity generated by the transition from colonialism through federation and on to independence and the forging of a national cultural identity. He encountered the same impulse to research, document, and develop folk resources, which drove Beryl McBurney's Little Carib Theatre initiative in the person of Eileen McSween of the San Fernando Arts Fest. She'd encourage us to visit old people and learn their folk songs and dances. The Arts Fest provided a welcome forum for nurturing and giving exposure to young talent. I learned the maypole and the bongo. Your boy was a dancer, you know. Besides the visceral attractions of dancing and acting, the young Anson was also developing an eye for photography and poetry. He quickly developed into an amateur photographer of note, winning several prizes and showing signs of his later prodigious organizational skills, founding the Focus Club and setting up competitions and exhibitions. While teaching at Newtown Boys, he met bibliophile and bookseller Clifford Seeley, who ran a bookshop from his home and who edited the journal Voices. The discussions he had with Seeley obviously proved formative. I learned a thing or two from him when he later embarked on New Voices. The hand of fate almost struck Anson down before his prime when he lost his right kidney in his 20s. I thought I was going to die, boy. Surviving this brush with mortality led to a frenzy of artistic activity, but also prompted him to look for something more sedentary. By now, he had begun to make a little mark as a poet. His inclusion in the 1967 government-sponsored literary collection, commemorating the 5th anniversary of independence, that should have been competition, I suppose, commemorating the 5th anniversary of independence, gave me a leg up into the burgeoning literary scene. And when he was drafted to the publications unit of the Ministry of Education, where he had a small role on the book selection committee, all those who have benefited from his unstinted generosity can be grateful that for once at least the bureaucrats, in seconding him, unwittingly launched 1,000 writing careers. Although he may not have fulfilled the wish expressed in Exit, where he says, "If I had my way, I would decide when I should die." Back in May, Anson seemed reconciled to his imminent departure. He spoke with self-deprecating humor and a modesty which belied his achievement. While it may be too soon to fully assess his contribution to Caribbean culture in general and literature in particular, there can be no doubt that Anson Gonzalez, along with A.J. Seymour of former British Guyana and founding editor of Kike Overall, and Frank Collymore of Barbados's BIM magazine, was one of the major agents of developing and promoting indigenous literary production. The legacy of his selfless life work continues not just with Poetry Day, but in the pages of the books he helped inspire and bring to print, and in the inclusive creative vision he helped foster, which we need now more than ever. And Simon ended that piece with, R.I.P. Anson, we'll be looking out for your poems in the sky. A very comprehensive piece by Simon Lee, giving us a lot of biographical details. And what I noticed is the name of the new voices, how he got it from Clifford Seeley's Voices. Right, that was supposed to be read by Randy Black. Randy, we're so sorry to hear that a relative passed away. You know, don't know what is happening. Willard, are you ready now? No? Willard is not ready as yet?
Yes, I'm ready.
You're ready, right? Okay, right. Thank you so much, Willard. Oh gosh, I can take a breather. Right, let me introduce you, Willard, from what I have here. Willard's career in theater spans over 30-odd years. He has performed in numerous plays, worked with many directors like James Lewer, Horace James, and Raymond Chupong, to name just 3. His versatility as an actor is evident in having performed in works ranging from Shakespeare and Chekhov to West Indian playwrights such as Walcott and Willie Chen. He has appeared on this forum before. Willard will read Moksha. Over to you, Willard.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and good afternoon, everyone.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your wonderful introduction. So as you said, my piece by Mr. Gonzalez is entitled Moksha. And I'll go right into it. It goes like this. Moksha by Anson Gonzalez. Within us dwells the truth among truths. Like the layered onion or the curled cabbage, it unfolds itself in casement sheets from the toughened and gross exterior, withstanding the ravages of sun, rain, wind, soil, and vermin. New and succulent layers reveal and release aromatic fragrances and life-supporting essences. Each layer is a discovery of new discrimination. Unlayered truths through the years reveal a succession of births and deaths, consciousness discarded, new consciousness discovered, while the cloistered village encourages calm acceptance of nature's bounty, effortless survival in a supporting environment. The ghetto child is hemmed in by alienation, cannibalistic oppression that builds Berlin walls around its psyche, Robin's Islands from its expectations, and churches with net and trident trap them in a coliseum of never, never, bestowing the thumb upraised or down, or the raised eyebrows of a papal patriarch or a Mecca-bound messiah, unable to barter gold or zakat for the promised nirvana on the mental plane. They glorify their captivity in the name of the great. Bearing Isbara, they fight crusades and jihads for the grandeur of their souls, smothered in miseducation. The truth is in the interior. The journey is within, where no man can go but the soul in discovery of itself, free from domination of leaders, not needing to understand liberation and emancipation from slavery, apartheid, or other torments men put upon men in this world, but free in the beingness and knowingness of all and everything and self and God, free in the glory of moksha. And that's taken from the Artifacts of Presence Collected Poems, 1964 to 2000. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Willard. Thank you, Willard. We have
You're
some
welcome.
historical allusions in that poem, the Berlin Wall, Robbins Islands, and the Labara, they fight crusades and jihads, the crusades. And well, I mentioned how this represented like a second phase of Anson in the evolution of Anson as a poet. I want to go back to the piece that we got from Simon Lee, where he talked about Anson being born in Mayo. He was born on August 21st, 1936 in Mayo. Here is Dr. Jennifer Rahim's take on that. He said, he literally began his life in the heartland of this twin island state that he undoubtedly loved. In the book Artifacts of Presence, there is a poem entitled Mayo. I moved to Mayo in 1997, and some people mix up Mayo with Mayaro. I got a letter quite from Mayaro post office saying that's to me. A year after his marriage to Sylvia Figueroa, he went to live at 1 Sapphire Drive, Diego Martin. Here is Dr. Rahim's take on that. I hope it will be long remembered as a key landmark in the island's literary history. Anson himself, when he migrated to Wales, wished that the house would have been taken over by the cultural authorities. Well, we know what is happening with Hanuman House. So I don't know, Miguel will talk about 1 Sapphire Drive later on. So we move on now to Motilal Budu Singh. Moti? Moti?
Thank you, Krishna.
Right. All right, let me introduce you please now.
Go ahead.
We give you a lovely introduction, Motilal, you see how close it's just the other day I get to know Motilal. You know. Motilal is one of the cornerstones of poetry and prose. He was featured in January 2022. He is the one who goads Gersha into action. Gersha Mahabir is the one who founded Poetry and Prose. If and when the occasion arises. He's also involved in the Alta project of reading under the trees. I think, yeah, yesterday, he read under the trees. And then he called for, he informed them that we had trees down south also, Pamis. He's also featured on Faizabad Regional Community Complex Monday program, Storytime. He writes for the online literary magazine, My Trinidad, Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. He has written books of short stories, the Kahani series, Kal Kahani, Katak Kahani, and Naya Kahani, and from time to time presents discursive pieces on seasonal topics like Diwali, Phagwa, Lent, etc. Motilal will be reading one of Anson's more popular poems, Kabis. Over to you, Moti.
Thank you. Kabis. Long time ago, they used to say how zombies used to walk the road. This poem is to cut Malju, is to save you from the blight of over loving eyes that conceal hate, from overgenerous eyes that subsume the bitter bile of envy, from Judas' friendly eyes that shut, bestowing the betraying kiss. It will ward off whatever evil may try to wither the bounty of your blooming life's garden. Keep it there, and no beetle, no bugworm, no worm, no fly, no snake will invade your life. And your life will be blossoming, Eden. Then you will sing your happy songs in the peaceful harmony you wish, or wear it like a mystic amulet or a ringlet of blue-black beads, or yet like a blessed ankh, and feel your confidence rise as you scale the insurmountable. Wear it, and you will climb your Everest as easily as you do your Eltukus, or make all of it make it a magic circle to protect you. Step into it, as my friend mother wants. In hoc vinci, with signs, defied her enemies and the evil ones. We will chant the Aves, the Alleluias, the Hosannas, the Ailakums and the Oms. We will bring the greater glory to your assistance, and you will rise and soar, or make it a stole of blue, draping all your ancestral contacts, give you strength, encircled by indigoed woods. You will barely step through legs, you will bravely step through legs of phantoms, put salt on Sukuya's skins, make Dwens disappear, and you will dance in live moonlight, safe from all harm. You know, I especially like this poem because I can relate to it. I grew up in the country in a Hindu village, Indian village, and where, you know, wherever you started to get you're sick or you're sickly, all that, you would go to the sadhu or to the pandit, and they will make a tabiz and you'll wear it around your neck. And I could really relate that. I can remember, and even now in the gardens, and they talk about malju, and we used to stick this milk of magnesia bottle here. It used to be blue, and that is to prevent what we call the malju, or the evil eye, to, you know, endanger your crop, or to restrict the bearing or the growing. I have heard stories of salts and the sukuyas, and, you know, the sukuyas shed their skin before they go embark on their journey to take your blood. So if you could find the skin and throw a bit of salt, she cannot put it back on and she will die. I mean, this poem has so much in it that I could really and truly identify, and I really love it. And it was an honor for me to read this.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah,
One
go
thing
ahead.
before I go, I did not know Anson Gonzalez. Maybe I was too young to all that. But when I was in the Writers Union, I used to hear the people talk about him with a kind of, how do you put it?
Reverence.
A godlike reverence. Everybody
Yes.
loved him. So thanks again for this opportunity for sharing.
All right. Before I go on to the next reader, let me just bring back Jennifer Rahim. I keep referring to Jennifer Rahim. Jennifer passed away just the other day. And we did try to get her onto the program, but wasn't able to do so. And only to learn later that she passed away. About tabiz, this is what Jennifer has to say. This is a tribute she wrote. Constantly plagued by feelings of misunderstanding, Gonzalez sought refuge in poetry's power to preserve the independence, integrity, and freedom of the individual spirit, a theme he takes up in Tabiz. one of his most stylistically superior poems that belongs to his store of poetry for children. Like the much anthologized Little Rosebud Girl, Tabiz is about the vulnerability of beauty and innocence, but poetry is presented as a metaphoric talisman, a circle of indigoed words against the maljoom that destroys innocence and thwarts promise. Right, that is Jennifer having her say on today's session. So now we move to Amanda McIntyre, who has a response to Tabiz. Amanda is a feminist writer, Pan-Africanist, and cultural activist. Her published works include short stories, poetry, and expository essays. She served as the co-director of the Caribbean feminist organization Womantra before founding the She Write collective that focuses on sexual and reproductive health and rights. I'm really looking forward to Amanda's response to Tabiz. Amanda, all yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for that introduction. And thanks to the members of Poetry and Prose for organizing this great event. I think that Anson Gonzalez is not praised enough for his contributions to the literatures of Trinidad and Tobago. I remember meeting Anson when I was an undergraduate at the University of the West Indies. We used to have these very quaint tutorials in the library, and he came in one day and introduced himself, and then also said to us that we knew him from before, but couldn't remember where. And so, of course, everybody started looking at each other like, what is this man talking about? And then he started with the line, $1, $2, $3, $4. And then everybody soon recognized that this was a poem we had read as children in Frank M. Porter's Republic Readers. And so from a very early age, so many generations of children in Trinidad and Tobago were introduced to the craft of lyrical poetry through the work of Anson Gonzalez, who went on to not only publish works, but also mentor so many writers of that generation and generations afterwards. Anson continued through my years at university to encourage me in writing poetry. I went on from that first course to do another course in creative writing with him, at which he gave me a small notebook one day after class saying, Amanda, this is for you to write all of your ideas. And I still have that notebook at my family home in Chaguanas. Once that course was done, he encouraged me to join the Writers Union. We spoke a lot about haikus, as Colleen was mentioning before, a lot about rengas, and he loved these forms. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that it was from Anson that I first even heard about the glories of prose poetry. When I left Trinidad in 2021, I went through several excavations of email and notes and letters, etc., trying to find material for a collection that I was working on. And finally, last year, into that collection, I placed a set of elegies because I found in being away from Trinidad, I was haunted by voices of people who had so significantly affected my work. And one of those people was, of course, Anson Gonzalez. And so last year, in 2022, I wrote this poem for him as a response to his Tabiz, which is also called Tabiz, and I will read it for you now. Let's get my trusty glasses. Tabiz for Anson Gonzalez. Earth swallowed many friends. Rivers carried others out to sea. Through meager years, superstitious with the memory of the etherized magician, chest open, broken heart racing to publish in blood on the surgeon's table its final edition. This gift remained, the charm of tabbies. Squares of blue cloth sealing folk magic, hand-stitched and pinned like the sea, seamed with coastlines and horizons to the chest of this Caribbean. For sight, black thread rolled in a ball, stuck to the forehead with saliva. Salt by the door, banishing dread. With your poem, I circled my head, made a guard of jet and silver. Through meager years, sitting in a circle with candles of saints, I lifted my hand. Your name lit the flame of Michael the Archangel. And in these signs you kept the gates, you were the pointer, the sage burning, smoking out the years. There was your libation, honey to make all things sweet, fresh milk to enrich and nourish. Ginger, cinnamon, bay leaves, and clove simmered uncovered on the stove. Through meager years, refusing, your ravenous spirit finally stretched its hands towards these offerings and in rebuff spoke, "Don't pray for me, just do your work. You bring these tokens when all I asked for were, and you promised me, poems." Through meager years of little respite in the movement of time, through stanzas and light passing through memory, one morning I got up and knelt low weeping. There were no prayers, only apologies, joining a union of writers and new voices chanting through Caribbean trade winds blown across the fine lines of your mythography. The scribes scrawling through cities, villages, schoolrooms, echoing in reading books, journals, anthologies. The canonical Jumbie haunting generations. You climbed up on stilts and with launders blue traveled through meager years, across oceans to find me in this exile. Weary of time, I know if there is anything to be gained in rum, cigarettes, and poetry, too much would still be lost. Rest in peace, dear teacher. I am at the crossroads of your dream, with amends for unfinished poems and the withered calendar's fallen leaves. Thank you.
Very touching.
Oh, very, very touching.
Yeah. We're supposed to have Dr. Jean Antoine Dunn. I don't know if she's here. Can anybody say? Moti, can you say if
No,
Dr. Jean Antoine is here?
No, she's not here.
She's not here. Okay. All right. She had planned to read poem by Jennifer Rahim. And I suppose we could come back to that if she does appear. If she doesn't appear, I will take the liberty of doing so. So let me go on to Vishnu Gosain. Vishnu is a retired educator whose love for the written word comes vividly across his weekly postings on Facebook. Sits there and he reads. He has written poems, short stories, novels, The Coming of Lights and The 12 O'Clock Man, as well as textbooks. His friendship with Anson goes way back. He contributed regularly to the New Voices, and on occasions I saw where Anson would get him to write for the media on Poetry Day observance. Vish, you remember those days? Over to you, Vishnu. You're going to read your chosen duty. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Krish. I guess you're hearing me right? Okay.
Yes.
Yes,
Right.
we are here.
Loud and clear.
Not only that, we are seeing you too.
My piece is called, well, actually, Anson's piece is called Your Chosen Duty. Writer, sit thee down and write. The ancient poet intoned, a message well taken by one and all who profess an interest in the art of the pen, that all may read, the music of your mind, the thoughts of your heart, the feeling of your senses, the logic of your brain, the intuition of your soul. Penning these lines for you helps the poet clarify his own thoughts about you as yourself and symbol of all young writers, as he himself once was, desiring recognition, still working at craft, seeking uniqueness, craving acceptance, feeling frustration at the magnitude of struggle, yet impelled to continue, a compulsion strong from source unknown. Or write the poems, or write a song that effervesces in the heart in the quiet time, as a silent muse song fill your head. Write the unearthly lines that insist you tender your gentle ministrations. And when your glance color your responses and insist that love is more important, draft the proper perspectives for the future so that your being is not strangled by the forces of domesticity and another's ego. Gain balance. Be the cause, not effect of another's wish, radiating outwards to the selected care, affection, and create, not only procreate, artifacts of your presence here in this cycle. Writer, sit me down and write. Anson Gonzalez. Thank you. That's my piece.
Yeah, I know you had a little problem with the bandwidth there. Perhaps you need to change your provider. I just joking. Lovely poem, and that is the poem from which this publication takes its title, Artifacts of Presence, its latest collection of poems. Artifacts of Presence. So now we go to Miguela. I'm holding you. Eh? All right, don't go. You stay with us. You have to put things together afterwards. It would be nice to hear, your response to all these readers. What you thought. Eintu Springer. One of Anson's dearest friends, Eintu is a poet, playwright, librarian, and cultural activist. She's a former poet laureate of Port of Spain, as Anson was. In 2003, she retired as director of the National Heritage Library of Trinidad and Tobago. Having founded the library and been its director since October 1993, a reading room of that heritage library was named in her honor. She has served as a founding member of various cultural organizations, including the Writers Union of Trinidad and Tobago, the National Drama Association of Trinidad and Tobago, and the Caribbean Theatre Guild. She is the author of several books, including poetry collections for both adults and children, as well as having her writings published in a range of publications and anthologies. Cantaro-born, an Irish elder, Ms. Springer is the recipient of the Hummingbird National Award for her contribution to the arts and the community. She said, Ms. Springer, you said you're going to read a couple of poems, so it's over to you. It's so nice to have you. I see they're calling you the grandmother of our nation.
Anson was a very, very dear, beloved friend. We dreamed many dreams together of celebrating our words. I think I described us as word warriors. A lot has been said about Anson, so I myself have written out an entire paper on Anson for the Writers' Union. So I will not go through and say too much more, except to touch on his humility and his generosity of spirit. Rest well, Anson, my brother. And this one is called Seeing a Hummingbird in Diamond Vale. As I see you now, boyhood memories fill my mind. You, poised projectile with blurred wings in motion, perpetually probing. Legendary memories of you and of Iris God, taking his revenge in pitch on native warriors who wantonly slew you. Come to me, you in forest areas of Palo Seco, Erin, where time traveler Bulbrook searched the earthen past for stories of your contemporary Arawaks, flit across my mind. Now darting around my flowers, poised you probe into your future. Could you have seen civilization slingshots aimed at you? You would have migrated to the Amazon basin or some such haven to live in your pristine splendor. But like the Indians, you could not withstand the advance of culture. And now you pause here and I recall, but yesterday you were a totem in the land and today a living museum piece. This poem is such a deep poem, and even at the time it was written, and this collection I'm reading from is score, poems by Victor Cattell and Anson Gonzalez, another departed warrior of the word. It was written, the collection was published in 1972. But this poem already, with the futuristic mind of the poet, looks at the whole thing of climate change, of the destruction of the environment. And it tells the story of the origin of the pitch lake, you know, that story of the hummingbirds being killed and eaten in a celebration. And then the great god, Tahumi Adalashi, swallowing up the entire village and replacing it with pitch. So many lessons in this poem, so many lessons. A way of teaching history through poetry. And then he talks about Bulbrook, that anthropologists who spend so much time searching for the history, for all the artifacts left by the first peoples. You know, so many things said in that little poem. So I don't know if I have time to read another one.
Ms. Springer, go ahead. I'm watching the time here. We are nearly 2:15. We're going to 3.
All right, this is a short one. It's also another one that deals with nature. It's called Rain Poem. The cool rain outpouring causes gestation of seeds in the soil, and seeds sown in darkened rooms on Dunlopillo, core or hemp, flooding drains with rubble reminiscent of flooded seminal canals, flushed and floated on by millions of sperms, and gestation of thoughts and ideas, and a song as cool bodies heat each other, and the world is forgotten on another flood before the rebirth. All those images, all those, the link between the rain and the sperm and gestation, new life coming. And then the whole thing again about flooding. There's a lot to learn from our poets and from the poetry of Anson. I read these two because I think they are very futuristic. I make a plea again. Poetry is not being taught in our schools. Literature is only being taught in prestige schools. And it is a terrible thing that we are doing to our young people. I salute Anson for the work and passion he put into New Voices and all the work he has done. May it not be in vain. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Springer. Lovely read, as well as your pertinent comments and your
Yes,
plea.
thank you very much. Thank you very much.
The Anson Gonzalez collection. Anson documented every aspect of his life meticulously. At a ceremony on June 4th, 2007, he formally handed over his archives to NALIS. The collection is located at the Heritage Library, National Library Building. It holds the entire collection of the New Voices Literary Journal, 1973 to 1993, as well as the New Voices Letter, 1981 to 1993. It chronicles the literary career of over 120 writers, particularly poets. It includes 106 manuscripts from notable writers and over 2,000 poetry books, periodicals, photo albums, and museum pieces. In 2015, the collection was inscribed in the World Register for the Caribbean and Latin America. Anson, in publicly thanking the memory of the World Commission on the submission of NALIS to include the collection as a memory of the world artifact, saw it as an unexpected swan song acknowledgement of his literary life. I looked at that video where he graciously accepted the offer to make it part of the memory of the world artifact. Lovely gesture. Okay, so now I go to Shahira Ali. Shahira is a regular to Poetry and Prose. We all look forward to hearing her precise intonations and a powerful rendition of the pieces she's often handed to read by none other than Moti. Shahira is an activist in a cause that has her appearing on both the print and electronic media. She would be reading two poems, one by Anson and one by Cassie Sengo. So let me just say something about Cassie Sengo. I consider Cassie as an elder. Our paths crossed when he was president of the Writers Union and I was its secretary quite a good few years ago, many. He was also a member of the Circle of Poets. He's a regular on this forum and was featured in December 2021. He's the author of 3 books of poems. Poems, I'm afraid to say. That's the name of one. Is Like This, and then Fire's Voice. I have to say, it was Cassie who suggested the date for this tribute by pointing out to us that World Poetry Day is celebrated nationally, regionally, and internationally on the 21st of March. Shahira, it's all yours.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Let's begin. Burden searched through tomes of letters and tombs of spirits, read volumes and filled choirs with writing, while choirs of unfilled songs maddened my brain. Tried confessional talks with nature, attempting to emulate Hercules with soul-destroying useless labors. Buried myself in duty's cell, creating a domesticated dovecote for which I had no heart. Ran through changes of flesh, clanging love's peal with tongue in cheek. Inflaming hearts whose heat touched not mine, racked my body with pain, and the effort to cleanse my brain produced at last a certain vision. Must live the remaining days in the service of art, must accept the curse of the poet and bleed while bell-ringing warnings turned the people away from the stench of their conquered truth. And that's Burden by Anson Gonzalez. Now I move on to my second poem for today that is entitled Pens for Sale by none other than Kasi Sangor. Let's begin. Thank you for holding my hand and walking me through these lines, for showing me how to shop for words to dress my thoughts. You pointed to the invisible world of creativity, which you said connects nothing to everything, on which hang-washed dreams, and on which poets delicately balance bicycles of real unreals. I saw you do it, and I followed. Purchased rhyme and free verse, diction and alliteration, syntax and meter, pen and paper. I ran my hand through stanzas, tried on sonnets, acrostics, felt the sensuous tickle of feathered quill upon skin's parchment, breathed in subtlety as it wafted up from my imagination's floor. Through images' door, exhaled pain, love, humor, more. I tried on stretched endings, tight beginnings, and metaphors in ensemble. We autographed our purchases, then slipped beneath book covers, punctuated, passed, and proofread. And that's the end of the two poems for today. And that's it for me on today's episode of Poetry and Prose. Hope you enjoyed.
Thank you, Shahira. I love the background there showing poetry and prose. That's lovely. And now I come to Miguela, but I want to say something about Maria as well, right? So, because Miguela is representing Maria, the family. So we heartily welcome Miguela. Maria, prior to establishing private practice, Dr. Maria Gonzalez had over 27 years experience as a dermatologist, combining clinical work at the University Hospital of Wales with academic teaching at Cardiff University. When I read her CV, oh Lord, that is so a phenomenal CV that includes being directly involved in the teaching of thousands of doctors in the field of dermatology, with doctors from more than 80 countries. Telling you, she has won many awards for her work, and her reputation is such that she's regularly invited to lecture for organizations and companies worldwide. That is Maria. Miguela, you'll help me here if what I'm saying is correct, because I Googled a lot of these this info to get the introductions. Miguela is a diversity and inclusion practitioner. She's currently, question mark, she will tell us, the head of diversity and inclusion at ABCAM, a global life sciences firm where she is working to build an open, inclusive culture. Prior to this, she worked in the media for a number of years. She will tell us how many. I have 15 here, maybe more than that. Mostly as a journalist with the BBC, but also in data analysis, project management, and subject matter expertise roles. Miguela has worked with the Welsh government and has also been a visiting lecturer at Cardiff University's School of Journalism, Media, and Culture. I remember Miguela and Maria when we used to attend these Poetry Day sessions with Anson, and he would have them playing the piano, he would have them reciting poems. Miguela, it's all yours now. We're now 2:27. You go ahead.
Thank you so much. I think, can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay? Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. The introduction was largely accurate. I was in the media for about 15 years with the BBC. And I currently engage in a number of roles alongside my job as a diversity and inclusion practitioner with the Welsh government, with the university, both in the business school and the journalism school. So it's all pretty much accurate. I mean, today has just been phenomenal, really. It's been a truly moving day. And I have to be honest and say that I had to come off screen a few times, to be honest. And I think I might be choked up a few more times even now. This was just beautiful. And I can't tell you how grateful I am for the care, the love, the memories, the overall appreciation of my father and his poetry. And as we know, the man and his work, they were inextricably linked. Maria, I'd like to say on her behalf as well, sends her gratitude for today's event, and she wasn't able to join, so sorry about that. I've had so many, I have to say, considered updates over the past few months from Auntie Cynthia, and a few of you on the screen will be auntie and uncle for me, and I still hold to that. I love that aspect of our culture, and I think I'd like to retain that. We retain that in our house. So Auntie Cynthia Birch, thank you very much for the passion that you put behind organizing and keeping me included as things developed with today's event. Before I launch into sharing more about life with the man I called Daddy, or I call Daddy, I wanted to just say that it's heartbreaking, Auntie Pearl, to hear, that poetry is not being taught in schools as a matter of course. That is a really challenging thing to actually know. I grew up, I went to a government school, and we had to learn our poems, stand in front of the class, read them, and I know that at present, I'm normally resident in the UK, but I must say that if there's ever any scope for a campaign or any sort of action that could prompt a rethink of the curriculum in order to include it as a matter of course, I would happily be a part of it and support it. So please do let me know if there was any sort of drive behind an activity like that. So in general, today has been making me think a lot about something that's been rattling around in my brain quite a lot, which is legacy, the issue of legacy. And I often wonder did Daddy know when poetry chose him what he was building? Who had he touched? Did he know he would be missed? Did he know that his work would still be read? Did he know that in one session he would be called brother, friend, mentor? Did he know just how much he would be missed? So thank you all so much. I think of my father daily, and they say that grief you learn to live with it. And it's been quite some time. And that they say it becomes background noise after a while. And I'm not so sure it's true for everyone. But a huge part of the grief that we try to live with is the constant burden of what's unresolved. So what is unresolved? It's the projects that you know he might have done. It's the stories that you know that he might have told. It's the people that he still wanted to reach out to. It's the collaborations that he was still planning in the many notebooks that never left his hands. It's the myriad new poets that he would have absolutely challenged. And it's the ways in which his legacy can live on. And I actually came back to the flat to join you for this meeting. So I'm not home right now. I'm actually in the flat that he lived in when he was here in Cardiff with us. And I looked around his room and, I just feel this huge culpability for the fact that a lot of those things that I just mentioned remain unresolved because I haven't done enough to ensure that his work continues to live and breathe here in the space that I am in. And I'm not just talking about his work, his poetry. When I say his work, I'm talking about his championing of other. So his championing from the new voices straight through to the poetry retreats that he would host at home. And I only found out about those poetry retreats after his death, that he would have people coming into the house. And I always wondered, who was in my bedroom? Yeah, it was just fantastic to know all of these things about him. And I love that about him because I didn't know because he never did anything for applause. Rather, he was passionate. He was passionate about life. He was passionate about love. He was passionate about learning, and he was never standing still. Even when he was bedbound, his mind just never stopped whirring. And he had this incredible capacity for making the most mundane and unseen of things sparkle so that they would just explode in your mind, and they would become like this new form that would simultaneously haunt and tantalize you in equal measure. In sitting with Daddy, he would take normal thoughts and then he would put them through this philosophical shredder, and he would reassemble them with his minimalist verse, and then he would take you on these philosophical journeys that would just make you reevaluate your own thinking. And when I say that, I'm just talking about the father-daughter talks. I'm not even talking about the poetry as yet. It was just everything that embodied him. So as a child, I didn't really know how lucky I was, and when I sit back and I think of it and I hear all of you here and the way in which you engage with thought and life and the way in which you assemble conversations around who we are as people and what makes us whole, I sit back and think of it, and I just didn't get that as a child in the way that I am now. And, you said once the fire drive is truly a landmark. It was a place that was infused with this colorful, joyous life, with this maverick who eschewed traditional norms, and he was always forthright, he was always generous. And I had no understanding of how significant it was that this man had an entire printing press in his home, and he would lovingly publish new works of burgeoning writers for more than 2 decades. This was our house. And I'm talking about publishing end to end. He taught me to touch type when I was 6, but for him, he forever did what he called hunt and peck, and he typed his way with his index fingers rapidly through thousands and thousands of pages, thousands of poems, hundreds of books, many not his own, most not his own. And I was able to bear witness to that labor of love without really understanding at the time the selfless passion that went into it. And I have to say, one of the greatest joys, he told me, was seeing the look of a new writer when he gave them their ISBN number for the first time. It was about a new voice. He always wanted the new voices to be heard. So as a child, when I saw him doing, I just saw him doing this fun, interesting stuff. And, I got to dance to the sound of freshly created verse and sentiment, and with a little bit of the mechanism of a printing press filling in as a bit of a drum beat in the background. And so I lived in a world where words mattered, those that were shared, those words that were shared, those words that didn't make the cut, those words that never left the writer's mind. They'd all mattered. And there was also the fun part where, as you just mentioned, I got to sort of be with writers like yourselves as a child growing up, just as a matter of course. It was amazing. It was stimulating, motivating. And I look at the names of all of you present today. Honestly, it comes flooding back. And I just need to thank you so much for being such an important part of my formative years. So as an adult, of course, I came to better understand Daddy's his incredible mind a bit better. I'm not sure how well people know about this, but he had a vast mind, and he could pluck things from his memory that you just thought, how do you know this as well? You know, include anything, you know, including, of course, 100 synonyms for any word you could throw at him. And I might have shared this story with some of you before, but I was blown away when we spent a few days together in Dublin. And naturally, my father, Dublin meant for him that he needed to go to all of the writers' homes. And I swear to you, this man would stand in front of each building and recite poems and extracts from these books. And naturally, I was flabbergasted because I knew his memory was frighteningly keen, but I didn't know it was like this. And what was lovely was that it was just that he could recount things, but he could also give a really robust analysis of it as well when we engaged in it. And that made the moments complete. But of course, you know, even though he could write anything from the European classics, and, you know, that would have flooded our curriculum in our libraries, you know, as a result of colonialism, his real commitment laid, as we know, with Caribbean writers. And my required reading list at home wasn't the typical classics that, you know, that we had to do at school. It was, he said, his child would have to know her Caribbean literature first and foremost. And that had such an impact on my identity today. And it's certainly a legacy that, you know, I would absolutely support if any drive were to be made to ensure that all children in Trinidad have that same sort of, you know, understanding of Caribbean literature in the way that I did, that was sort of inculcated at home. A moment that really crystallized for me in terms of the kind of man and artist that Daddy was during his memorial service, when Michael Anthony said that he would have been probably even more renowned for his work if he hadn't made his focus the promotion and development of other writers in the way that he did. Perhaps that's true. But the truth is, Daddy was genuinely disinterested in his legacy actually being about him. And as you know, you said it yourself, he was self-deprecatory. He was always prepared to recognize the worth of others, even if that meant diminishing his own. He would have us in fits of laughter about it sometimes, you know, and he would be thrilled. He would be absolutely thrilled to know that his work lives on. And even his recognition by UNESCO recognized that his commitment was to Caribbean literature in the main, and that, you know, his concern was that every future writer would eventually be an amazing part of this body of Caribbean poetry and novels. And when we talk about writers and future writers and those writers that he was concerned about, one of those people of whom he was very proud, of course, was Dr. Jennifer Rahim. I am so sorry that she's not with us today. I remember as a student, and I remember my father's excitement about her incredible talent. And, you know, boy, oh boy, was he right. Jennifer shone brightly, and I really hope she continues to do so through the legacy of work she's built up. And similarly, Daddy would have been equally saddened to learn of Professor Gordon Relair's death as well, because he was a dear friend to us and our family. Of course, my children know of their grandfather's legacy rather well. When they have to do something for school in a class for an event, they always ask whether or not they can choose one of Grandpa's poems. And it was also beautiful that they were able to come to Trinidad and see the artifacts that the National Library holds of his. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, I really need to come home and just sit there for a while to feel close to him. But for today, for now, you have all given me this wonderful gift in bringing me close to him through this event, you know, to celebrate him rather than me trying to block out the white noise of grief that I deal with daily. I feel really elated that I've connected with you all, or reconnected in some cases with you. And I genuinely hope that that can be maintained from henceforth. So for now, to a man who was a poet, a deeply spiritual thinker, a mentor, a publisher, civil rights activist, a feminist, I know he was, a convener, a great friend, a wonderful father and grandfather. Anson Gonzalez, you are truly missed, you are truly loved, and I thank you all sincerely for today.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Miguel.
you. That was beautiful.
So many words. Yeah, if you were to print that, that would run into a few pages. Well, the pace at which you spoke. You mentioned Dr. Rahim, Jennifer Rahim. Dr. Jean Antoine Dunn was supposed to read a poem by her. So I want to take the liberty of so doing before we go to the vote of thanks, or before the vote of thanks, even we could ask other people to who would like to say something to come in.
Yeah, yes, Krishna. We have two people who here we have Lawrence and Scott.
Yes.
And Louisa, so we could ask them to say something.
Okay, sure. I had that in mind, but I want to read this piece by Jennifer Rahim. She called him Anson Gonzalez, you know. So this piece is entitled Anson, and it's from her book Between the Fence and the Forest. Somewhere between the struck match and the small flame, between the tepid resolve to scour the kettle's dull surface and the thirst for clarity, a song familiar, forgotten, trails the white page of an early flock of egrets, home and east to beginnings. Anson, you mined deep for sapphire on the ordinary streets of home, casually polishing gems in running shorts, back exposed, taking blows all the time for not taking sides, black or white. Blows hard as silence because no one saw your light. Always you ran your own meter, eating pain through a landscape that loves her children, not all equally. Hey, Alfie's cracked blue notes still tinny off. We have not learned to harmonize. The musicians just changed their beat. So right to serve while others dictate, right to seek new voices, those long silver years. Poetry, you believe, flies free. Words, the office of your patient hours trailing truth, shunning looseness like sin. Language was your own only formality, the discipline that ordered the lived-in chaos of rooms, shuttling literature like your fair-striving printer. Reams spurred from its belly like mountain water down dry season valleys, blessing us yet with the miracle of books. What was it that turned you in after years of running singularly that others may find speech? Was it the long silence that hardened to neglect? Lately you mourned a broken word as for a lost son. The arid years punctured your head, pared your words, drew you to a higher house to serve for a light we could not give. All day your rooms hum electronic voices, netting info from radio, TV, and computer like a wino wishing to hush the silence. And still unable to abandon us bastards, you built templates for the homeless world, launching small voices to cyberspace. Your hermit's song haunts us still. Love, like poetry, never dies. It rises each dawn to sing for life. You believe every departure begins another entry, an opportunity to serve truth in the changing rhythms of our days. Anson.com. Today I summon you, poet. You have always, will always go before us. Background music. Lovely background music. Anson.com. Today I summon you, poet. You have always, will always go before us. Elder, you have new mail. Please click on. Thank you, Jennifer. So now I want to open the floor to anyone, yes, who would like to say something. Right, Roseanne. Yes, I recognize Roseanne. Okay, so then we have Lauren. So let's go with Roseanne. I know I used to read poetry with Roseanne too.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for this momentous occasion. I'm always happy to be a part of anything that is celebrating Anson, because when I joined the Writers Union in like 1982-83, after coming home from studying abroad, that's where I also met Jennifer. And I always recall that in that meeting, she gave a piece of literary criticism on something Olive Sr. had written. And I was immediately struck. I said, what is your name? Introduced myself. I said, you have a phenomenal sense of literary criticism. And I myself was not even in literary criticism at the time. I was in the corporate world of accounting. And, you know, we struck our friendship from there. But Anson was like a midwife. Anson knew when something had to be born, and he just knew how to pull it off. We became very good friends. And Miguela, I mean, I always remember you and your piano playing, but I want to remember your mother also. Huh? Sylvia was a beautiful person. And you know, when people invite you into their home and make you part of their family, it always feels so special. And that is what Anson was. I could not ever go to Diamond Vale and not go to One Sapphire. He has given me so much stuff. In fact, I've been going through my library, pulling out all the things that Anson has given me over the years and my new voices that I've salvaged. Of course, Krishna, you are very much published in the New Voices publication. And I actually have your work too, Song of a Barefoot Soul or something of the sort. But I want to just end my part this evening by reading what I thought would have been, what I thought was Jennifer's last book, which is Sanctuaries of Invention, which she published in 2021. But I noted in Jeremy Pointing's very tender tribute to her since her passing last Monday, that she had something in print called, waiting to be published, called Goodbye to the Bee. So in Sanctuaries of Invention, she has this poem called Remembering Anson G. Anson was very dear to Jennifer. She called him her mentor, whatever. All right, so let me just end my little portion of this, and thank you very much. Thank you. It's good to see people like N2, because just to say that when the Writers Union started, or at least when I joined it, there was people like N2 Springer, Brother Resistance, Brother Book, Marina Maxwell Umawale. These were the people that Anson had us meeting on a Saturday afternoon in a classroom at, I think what is Belmont Junior Secondary or Belmont Secondary. But we didn't mind. We felt as though we were at the foot of a muse. We felt that as we were in the company of something that was so rare. So I was very humbled and privileged when at the launch of Anson's collection at NALIS, I was asked to do the feature. In fact, I think Anson called me and said, Rosa, I want you to do my introduction. This was to the launch of Artifacts of Presence at NALIS. And Professor Rollier did the review of the book and so, okay? So remembering Anson G. You are evermore to me a new world Fergus, who left behind nation rants to gain rare mystics passage through the narrow gate of sleep and wake. For that up-ladder state, you hewed a craft of blood from stone living and stitched a sail of pressed down no thanksgiving, then set out for the stars. Minister Anson, maybe I've made too little of my dreams, though once you bid me write them down, if only to decipher clues for crossover seasons. I never did, preferring more to labor at dreaming up poems. The good news, my nights of late are indigo blue and pinned with stars, like I imagine how saints look down and nod on us. One in particular is extra bright above highlands like Dylan's Cambrians, or were they the mountains north of One Sapphire in August, or those bluffs now to my new south? I cannot be sure. Your last September scattered you like 1,000 suns. Jennifer Rahim.
Thank you, Roseanne.
Thank you. And thank you for that.
Thank you for your comments and the reading. I want to recognize Lauren first before I go to Louisa. Lauren?
Yes, I am here. Question is, can you hear me?
Yes, we are hearing
Lovely.
you. And
Good
we
afternoon.
are seeing you too.
Oh, lovely. Good afternoon. So 2 or 3 thoughts. One, I know Mrs. Birch from church and from school. And when I looked at Miguela, I saw Maria. I lived in Diamond Vale. Maria and my sister took piano lessons with Mrs. Osborne, and they played at festival together. And then quickly thereafter came the thought of my granny. My grandmother is Olga Kama Maynard, also a poet, also a writer. My grandmother was born in 1902, which means she was many years older than Anson Gonzalez. But the delight and the joy in her eyes when he would come to visit and affirm her writing and her poetry, you would have thought she was receiving the Nobel Prize. His love for her and admiration was the same as hers for him. And so when Miguel talks about you are living in an experience and not even understanding the significance of it until years later, those are the thoughts that came to mind. Why would he appreciate her? Because she was an older person writing poetry about nature, about her country in the way that he did, simply because she was a woman, simply because she understands the value of words, the gift of words and poetry. Don't know, doesn't matter. But what I do recall and what I think of now is we sometimes neglect and overlooked the power of our own gift to each other, from each other. And so I am reminded that each has a gift. Some are brilliant with words, and some of us just have the gift to listen. The challenge now for us as a nation and a people is to afford each other the space to share the gift and to appreciate the gift. So I thank Mrs. Birch for dropping stuff on my Facebook page, and I'm like, oh yes, I want to go to that. Oh, remind me. And I thank you all for doing this, because the art of public speaking is lost. The art of thinking is lost when we only focus on watching visual images go by. It's a gift. And so thank you for this, Miguel. Thank you for representing your family. Once a fire sticks out in my head, because I used to walk over there often. She sent me a message, I go when they're going to practice for the music festival and stuff like that. But these are, I say education is a codification of experiences. And without these experiences, we are all the worse off. So thank you again for this activity and for sharing and for the opportunity to show my 25 cents.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lauren. More than 25 cents. Louisa, I recognize Louisa.
Hello, everyone. I have my new voices from the 1980s when Anson first started to publish my work and we started to correspond. His reach was very far. And when I think about it, I met him, I didn't meet him physically, but through written word, because at the time I was head of an arts organization and I was sending my work out, frustrated as many feminist new writers were. And Cecil Cooper was at the time a muralist working with us. And he said, why don't you try the New Voices? It might be more of what, would appreciate your work. So he gave me the address, I wrote, and we just began this great correspondence. We had this spiritual life in common. And it's so wonderful to have somebody read and publish your work who understands what you're saying. And I won my first prizes really through Anson. And I had sent this and he published it to him, and he published it in the back. Dear Anson, this indeed is a celebration to see my poems appear in the New Voices and receive this beautiful prize. A million thanks. I so appreciate it. And keep up your marvelous work, the keeper of the spirit of poetry. I feel the New Voices is the spirit of poetry because it works from love and for the birth of the creative spirit in new writers who so need encouragement. Blessings to you for your continued success, and many thanks, Montego Bay. So I was there at the time, living in my 3-4 worlds, and Anson made a great link. So I was so happy. I just found this, Amanda, where I saw his face come up and it said a tribute to Anson Gonzalez. I said, wow. I mean, I knew he passed. I didn't know that this would take place. This is wonderful. I really am happy. I just accidentally fell into She Writes Collective and this wonderful day. Beautiful, beautiful tribute. Thank you.
Thank you, Louisa, for your sentiments. Miguel spoke about legacy. Anson Gonzalez was a Caribbean poet, laureate, literary activist, photographer, actor, educator, mentor, publisher. Avuncular is the word that he used to describe his relationship with a number of people like myself. Anson was the founder, editor, and publisher of the New Voices, a literary journal established in 1973. Anson's works was widely anthologized. He claimed his space on the literary landscape by maintaining a healthy publication record. As Miguel pointed out, people tend to not know this. He was the recipient of several awards. He was a founding member and president of the Writers Union of Trinidad and Tobago. He established the World Poetry Day here on October 15th, to be celebrated on October 15th. He conducted creative writing classes, orchestrated competitions, recitals, and workshops throughout the region. He was a literary historian, compiling several bibliographies, indexes, and anthologies of Trinidad and Tobago literature. So I put it to you, if you can find someone who can match up to that legacy, kindly introduce me. And on that note, I want to take my leave and hand over. I was supposed to hand over to Kirsha, but she's not here. I want to hand over to Moti to offer the vote of thanks. Moti? Right.
Thank you, Krishna. This was a really fantastic session, and I want to thank everybody who came out to contribute today, and especially thank Cynthia Birch, who did a lot of research and send out the poems and invited these marvelous people, Louisa, Rosanna, and I don't know how many others. I want to thank my good friend Amanda T. McIntyre. See her there at the top of the screen there with that kind of Mona Lisa smile. Say, my gosh, Amanda. And for Krishna for doing a marvelous job, and all the other members of Poetry and Prose, Kasi Sengo, who couldn't be here today because he had something pressing, Willard, my good friend Colleen with the haikus. When I went to Writers Union for the first time, met Colleen there, and then she used to talk about Anson. I said these people used to talk about Anson with a kind of godlike reverence. It was so great. Okay, June Aming, who has been here all for the entire program. Thank you, June. She's another one who used to talk about the influence, how Anson influenced her own writing. I don't know if I forget anybody, but I want to thank everybody for coming here. We usually stop at 3 o'clock. So we're nearing 3 o'clock. Again, thanks all, and please continue to join us at Poetry and Prose as we try to feature, writings, and especially local writings, people from Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean. Thank you all.
Thank you, Miguel, for appearing as well to represent the family.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Say hello to the rest of us, your mother and Maria, and of course his grandchildren. Yeah. Okay.
I would just like to add one sentence. I particularly would like to thank, Miguel, of course, and too, Ken Jaikaransing, who was going to travel, but the very minute I sent a message to him, he immediately wrote his thoughts and sent them in. And that was weeks ago. And then Roseanne and other people who go back with Anson to time immemorial. What I did was just send out so people would know. And I just add to what Motilal said. We have to thank you so much for making this a really significant vote of support for all that Anson put in over the years. Thanks again.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you, host. Thank you,
Much, everyone.
Krishna, for a great job.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Thanks, Cynthia,
Thank
for your
Hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, everyone.
So,
Hello, Amanda. Hello,
Bye,
Colleen.
Hi,
Hello,
Roseanne.
Cynthia.
Bye.
Hello, Miguel.
Hey, Roseanne.